The victim got taken, obviously, straight to hospital with quite severe injuries.
They said even at that stage, didn't they, when they were about to put them into the back of the ambulance, and they said currently it's about a 50-50 chance of survival.
Just a quick disclaimer, the content presented in this podcast is based on real events and may contain graphic descriptions of violence, crime scenes and other disturbing material. Listener discretion is advised. This episode is sponsored by Think Forensic.
Think Forensic are a one-stop shop for all things forensic science and crime solving. They hold experience days, as well as corporate events, team building events and general education for primary school right the way up to university level, as well as other events and consultancy. There's also a shop where you can get your hands on all things crime solving, from evidence gathering to packaging and collecting evidence, as well as other forensic science equipment.
For more information or to book on an experience day, please visit the website.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Grave Secrets. We're your hosts. I'm Beth.
And I'm Annie, and today we are going to be talking to you about the murder of Anthony Ibbitson. So this actually happened in Kingston upon Hull, which is East Riding of Yorkshire. So not actually too far away from where we are.
Not far at all.
And this case is about a vulnerable man who was actually assaulted and left for dead in a burning building. So at this point, the police sort of have a manhunt on the hands to try and find out who is responsible for this. I found this case really, really sad.
Yeah, it is. It's heartbreaking.
One of the more upsetting ones that we've covered, I think.
I think also the fact, as obviously we always say, like we'll go on to talk about, it's one of those where when you think about the circumstances surrounding it, so you've just mentioned the fact that there is in fact a fire.
Yeah.
But this was in a block of flats, so you're not just putting that one person.
I thought that. You're putting
risk.
all the other people in the flats in danger, and the suspect, if someone's been found assaulted and left in a burnt out building, the suspect is extremely dangerous.
Yeah, because they're clearly willing to
do anything.
Whoever that stands in their way.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the case from when it first happened, obviously.
Yeah, I think this one is quite in chronological order as well, so I hope it's easy for you all to understand.
Yes.
I found this one quite straightforward in terms of the like gathering the evidence and the investigation.
I did too. I'll talk about it at the end, but there are a couple of things that I don't think, because we've gone off like documentary and there's really not a lot of additional information out there.
Yeah.
I tried to look for kind of news articles and things and couldn't really find much.
Yeah, so normally we use like documentaries, we'll look for interviews with either police officers, family members, information on the victims, but yeah, I didn't actually find a lot on it, but it is quite a recent one. So we're going back to, it's only 2023, isn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe it's just not being covered by many other people.
Potentially.
And I'd like you, I did find a few articles out there, but nothing that was in that much detail.
They're more about when the offender then gets convicted, aren't they?
It was more about the offender than the victim.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off with the 999 call that came in to the police, and this was on Wednesday the 29th of November 2023, and this was around 8:30 p.m. So a call comes in actually to the Fire and Rescue Service to request the fire brigade, as someone has called in and said there is actually a flat that's on fire. So someone states that not only the flat is on fire, but there is someone in there who is unable to get out.
Yeah.
So this must be absolutely horrific for the caller as well. And what had happened is...
They said they're trapped, didn't they? They said there's a person trapped inside.
So the locals had gathered around, seen that someone was stuck inside and tried to start pulling the window, hadn't they? And managed to get the window out, I think, so that they could see more into it. But it was too dangerous for them to go in because it was already sort of engulfed in flames.
Yeah, I think from what I could gather as well, because obviously then the fire service is called out, but then you're also going to have police on the way also. So by the time that the police arrived, they had torn out the window, but I think that was more the fire service, because then they'd pulled the victim out of the property as well.
Yeah.
And then you've obviously got the paramedics that are trying to work on the victim.
Yeah, so the victim got taken obviously straight to hospital with quite severe injuries.
They said even at that stage, didn't they, when they were about to put them into the back of the ambulance, the police kind of said, how are we looking, what we're looking at here? And they said currently it's about a 50-50 chance of survival.
Yeah, so already really low, isn't it?
Yeah,
so it was a male that got pulled
that,
out of the building.
Even that is... When you saw kind of the fire and the scale of the fire, you'd be surprised that they'd even survived that, and even just getting pulled out of a window.
So not even looking at the fire
traumatic.
while it was happening, but looking at the aftermath of the fire within the flat. It's just crazy how much fire damage does, and not only fire damage, the smoke damage as well.
Yeah.
So at this point, there's a lot of people that have come outside their houses to have a look what's going on, or
it's not
to see
late
if they
at
can
night,
help.
is it? It's not.
8:30
I think
now.
when it gets to like 1 o'clock in the morning, often if you hear voices or anything or a bit of a commotion, you know, one, you probably don't want to get out of bed anyway.
Yeah.
Two, you're then thinking, well, if it's people that are drunk or having a fight, you don't want to get involved.
Yeah, or you're half asleep and you're just like, oh,
yeah.
just go
But
back to
earlier
sleep.
on in the night, I think you probably would be more inclined to go out and see what was going on, or try and put a stop to something.
But I do think that's a good thing, because with it being so early on, there was a lot of people that were out there, and there is also a lot of witnesses then for the police to talk to.
Yeah.
And one of the witnesses said that they had heard two people arguing from the flat, both male voices, and it sounded like one was telling the other one to get out of the flat and to leave.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it went quiet, so they just thought, oh, the person's left, and they've just sort of finished their argument.
So from a linguistic point of view,
I knew you were going to like this.
I found this. Now, obviously, it's quite a lot of, again, body cam footage, not dash cam footage.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. We talk quite a lot at work about interview techniques and the way you should ask people and witnesses questions. And I did notice that one of the officers did ask quite a leading question, because they said, did the voices sound local?
Yeah.
And the witness actually said, yes, I think so. It was tricky to say, but yeah.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
But I did find that was interesting. It's understandable, because you're trying to get to a quick answer and you're on scene, you're not in interview.
Yeah,
you're just
it's
trying to
in
get
the moment,
information.
isn't it? You're getting as
You're
much
just trying to
information as
get
you can.
information.
Yeah.
But are they local is a bit of a leading question.
So here is where it changes a little bit, because the victim's taken to hospital with horrific burn injuries, but doctors also discover that he has been seriously assaulted.
Yeah.
So now it's looking a little bit different to just he was in a fire, he wasn't able to get out. So is it now a little bit more suspicious?
Yes. We also don't know that the person that they've pulled from the flat necessarily is the person that lives in the flat. They don't know anything at this stage. So it's quite a complex investigation, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because you've got to do the fire analysis.
Yeah.
You've then got all of these witnesses.
Yeah.
And then you've got your victim.
And with the fires as well, a fire does, as we know, destroy quite a lot of evidence. So if you're looking for anything to put a suspect in a certain place, you haven't got the fingerprints, you've probably not got the DNA. It's like a whole different thing that you have to look at, isn't it?
Even if you think of it from your victim point of view, unfortunately, when they find someone deceased that has been killed, or even if it's natural circumstances, finding that person in whatever circumstance they are discovered in gives you an indication of what happened.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to someone the other day, and it was a case that they thought might have been suspicious, but actually based on the way that they found the victim, they had just fallen and hit the head on, you know, one of those old fire guards. It was that. But because of the way that the victim had fallen and that the victim was still present at the scene, they could work that out.
Yeah.
In this case, you've obviously had to pull the victim from the scene.
Yeah.
So you don't have that additional information.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, after being treated in hospital for 2 days for both the severe, obviously, injuries from the fire, but also from the severe
assault as well.
Assault. The victim was pronounced deceased, and so at this stage, it's now officially a murder inquiry, a murder investigation.
So we did say a little bit at the beginning about Anthony Ibbitson, but when he got taken to hospital, he was obviously identified as 54-year-old Anthony Ibbitson. So maybe because they'd identified him, they could at least alert, family members and someone could be there with him, because you just think how much pain he would have been in at the time with obviously the beating.
You don't even know if he was conscious at any point, do you?
And the fire as well and the burns. Did you know what was going on?
I would have thought not, purely for the fact that during the investigation there's no mention of an account from his point of view, is there?
No.
And quite often with severe burns, they have to keep them under sedation, don't they?
Yeah, so Anthony Ibbitson actually was known to be also quite vulnerable as well, which just makes it such a sad story, doesn't it?
It does. And I think what is also sad is that there isn't an awful lot of information about him, unfortunately.
No.
Obviously, we bang on, and rightly so, about our victims in these cases, and we try and give you as much of an idea of their kind of life story as possible.
There's nothing on his background,
but we don't really have
anywhere.
any information.
No.
But still just as important to tell you about his case, because obviously he was just as important as anyone else is. So the investigation is now launched, and it actually was handed over to Humberside's major crime team. It was a DCI on the case called Amy Keane Christie.
I like how in this one there was quite a lot of women that were in charge.
Yeah, it was.
Normally
actually,
on the police programmes, you do see the leading detectives tend to be the men, don't they? Yeah, but Humberside Major Crime Team is powered by women.
In fact, I've been over to the police station, or one of the police stations in Hull, and their CSI team was primarily female as well.
Right.
So at that point, the information that they've got so far is that they've got a vulnerable victim, they've got a serious assault case, they've also got an arson attack or potential arson, and they've got a witness of 2 separate individuals. They can't get any information, unfortunately, obviously, from Anthony, because he's now been declared deceased. So they decide to go back to the scene itself, which was then confirmed as being Anthony's home address. It was his flat. So they think, right, okay, obviously you've got the fire analysts that are going in there to determine what's happened, but they can also establish what they think might have happened from the scene.
I think Amy as well, because she was the investigator on this, I think she wanted to get a bit of a feel for the layout of the property as well, just to sort of work out, with it being a fire scene, go in and work out and physically see where the fire started. Yeah. And they did manage to determine that the fire had started in the bedroom, which was then, he was then rescued by firefighters from the bedroom.
Yeah, they kept referring to it as the back bedroom, didn't they? So I'm assuming that meant the back of the flat. Yeah. But the window went out almost onto the road, didn't it? It looked like. So back bedroom, but I'm assuming main bedroom within the flat. But
then you think now, if the fire had started in the same bedroom as where our victim was rescued from, why didn't he move? Why didn't he get out of the bedroom? Was it possible that because of the beating he couldn't get away?
Yes.
So you have to think because obviously now we're looking at a murder investigation, but is it due to the beating? Is it due to the fire?
Yeah. Also, it's very unlikely, isn't it, that someone is severely beaten and then there just happens to be a fire.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if, like, there's obviously cases where people have I can't speak today, where people have left a cigarette lit or it's caught fire to something, and then that might set a house alight. But if someone's been horrifically beaten, it's very unlikely that kind of situation would just
And in this case, as well, there was actually blood on the walls. So you got blood spatter on there as well.
Yeah.
That was actually quite clear, wasn't it?
Yes.
So there's a lot of smoke damage throughout the whole flat.
Yeah, it was interesting to see, actually, because within the back bedroom where they believed that the fire had been started, they could see... It was interesting because there was quite a lot of fire damage, but you could still make out what certain things within the flat were, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there were still remnants of picture frames. There were still remnants of a kind of chest of drawers of clothing. Not everything was burnt to ashes and to a crisp.
Yeah.
And that's likely due to the fact that witnesses called it in so quickly and the fire service got out there.
Yeah.
But when they moved into other areas of the flat, like the kitchen, for example, that's where, like you say, there were high levels of smoke damage, but not so much fire damage. So it was quite a kind of, what's the word? I wouldn't say, targeted, I guess.
Yeah.
Fire. And it hadn't affected all of the potential evidence, which was obviously a really good thing in this case.
But then with the fire, they have to think about what samples they're going to take as well. Where do you get the samples from? What are you going to take? What is most likely to have DNA on? Because now the police knew that it's involving more than one person because the witness that heard two people arguing.
Yeah.
So now we know it's not an accidental fire. We know his injuries from the assault are extremely bad.
Yeah.
You do know now you are looking for, obviously, this second person.
They also noted while they were looking in the bedroom that there was quite a lot of signs of disturbance. So there were a lot of clothes that were flung everywhere. There was a lot of damage. So there were broken picture frames and things like that. Whereas in the kitchen, everything was neat and tidy.
Yeah, so it's not like he would have left it like that. It's a disturbance that's probably happened while the attack has been taking place.
While the attacks have been happening. Or the only other thing that I thought, because again, you've got to think of all the options, is that if he was trying to get out, whether or not he's held on to something and things have been knocked over. But it was clear that there was definitely a disturbance.
So I think with this, CCTV did play a massive part in this investigation, didn't it?
Yeah.
And I thought this was sort of quite clever because it wasn't a straightforward situation. So outside the flats, there was CCTV, but it wasn't very... It was very grainy, wasn't it? Did you see the video?
I think it's like most places that maybe have a block of flats or whatever, where they'll have to have CCTV to a degree.
Yeah.
But for anyone that owns a block of flats, it's an expense, isn't it?
Yeah. But
So,
there was actually a camera, luckily, that covered the front entrance to the flat.
Yeah.
So it was quite clearly seen, that entrance from the road, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite good. But at this point, police have to map out the entire area, don't they, and find out where all the CCTV cameras are in general.
Yeah.
But when they find this one that does cover the address, it shows an individual leaving the address just after the fire started, but you couldn't make out anything in particular about this person. I could make out that they were wearing black.
Yeah.
That they'd got black trainers on with maybe something white on them.
Yeah.
And they'd got a dark outfit on. That is how far you could go. I couldn't even 100% say if it was a man or a woman because it was from behind as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. I also noticed that they weren't running away.
No.
From the scene. It was after the fire had just started.
Yeah.
But they weren't running away. It didn't look like they were panicked.
And they weren't running
for help. They
yeah.
were just leaving the area, weren't
Yeah.
they? But again, if you you can hear it when there's a fire.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Can't you? You'd think that you might have even turned round.
Yeah.
You'd notice.
You would definitely notice.
Yeah.
But the good thing about this is that the police had got the 999 call, so they'd got a timeline.
Yes.
So on the CCTV, they could see a person leaving the property when the fire was just starting.
Yeah.
So they went back even further then to look at who had entered the property before. So they could actually see how long someone had been in there for before the fire had started as well.
They did then believe that could be a potential suspect because, like we say, they're not in a rush to get help. They've left shortly after the fire. That's another big coincidence. So they're now trying to map this person's movements so that they can get an idea of who they are, and if nothing else, they're a potential witness.
Yeah.
So they're going to want to
speak. They could be ruled out of the investigation. Yeah.
So they're going to want to speak to them regardless of whether or not they're then treated like a suspect or whether they are just going to be ruled out.
But because we've got like a rubbish CCTV image, is what they decided to do quite cleverly is look at the direction that the suspect was walking in, and then they actually sent officers out onto that road to spot where all the CCTV cameras were, and then go and pick up the footage from those in the hopes that one of them would catch either his face or one would be an image that was a lot clearer.
Yeah.
And when you look at the difference between the different qualities of the CCTV cameras, it was massive, wasn't it?
Yeah. I still find it perplexing that they're not all a lot better, but I think that is just due to cost, isn't it?
Yeah.
But from a nearby shop, which again wasn't far away at all, it was like a corner shop, but it had much better CCTV.
I thought that was really clear, that CCTV from there.
Yeah, and that gave them a clearer image that backed up kind of basically what you said, like quite a dark outfit, trainers with a potential white sole.
I think they found the brand of the coat as well. I think it was a North Face coat that you could see more clearly on this CCTV than you could before.
But the one thing that they noticed is that they'd still not got the suspect's face on any of the footage. They actually managed to get footage from over 50 different CCTV cameras along the route that suspect had taken.
Yeah.
And it then comes down to a team to piece it all together. So again, at work, we've got someone who worked on a major case in the UK, and he spent over a month, he said, almost creating like a flip book of footage.
Right.
Some of it was phone footage, some of it was like social media, some of it was CCTV, and you have to put it all in time order, but it's all different files effectively, but you have to be able to play it in chronological order so that you can see how things unfold.
I think that's quite interesting, isn't it? And I'm guessing they have quite a big team to do this, because if you're watching CCTV, like bit by bit, it can be quite a daunting task, and
overwhelming as well.
You'd imagine if you just like blinked or lost concentration for a second, you'd be like, I need to go back over that bit to check I didn't miss something in particular. But 50 cameras is crazy. So that will go to the digital unit to be analysed. And in this case, the suspect was walking across a car park, so they sort of knew the direction he was going, but when they watched him walk, he had a very distinctive walk, didn't he?
Yeah.
Sort of almost like a bit of a lopsided limp.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit of a mixture between a limp, but also like he was trying to do the cool swaggery walk, where they kind of like, just like I am now.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of one-sided and it's all a bit of a shoulder barge. But it did look more, it was clearly unsuccessful because it looked more like a limp.
Yeah, it did.
The other thing that they noticed was that it did seem likely that this was in fact a suspect because of how well they had managed to conceal their face.
Yeah, it's almost like he knew where all of the cameras were.
Yeah.
And even managed to go into a phone box and make, well, we think a phone call, but he was in the phone box for some substantial amount of time.
Yeah.
Come out of the phone box and then still managed to hide his face ongoing on the rest of his route.
Yeah.
So the police did actually look in the phone box for DNA as well, didn't they? They took a swab of the receiver thinking maybe
I think
he's
they
picked
actually
it
took
up.
the handset off.
Yeah.
The whole bit of the handset. Because they
brought
thought,
the whole thing back.
Yeah, because they thought, like you say, if we can get any fingerprints from it.
I just think how dirty would that have been? Like how many people have
prints on
touched it?
prints.
Like how many people will have put that phone to their ear? There must be so many sort of, well, I thought there would be a lot of DNA on it, but there actually wasn't.
No. But then again, it's like whether or not they've wiped it down after they've used it kind of thing. You don't know.
So the police in this case are following him now through the CCTV, and they actually track him to 5 miles away. So that is so far. But this actually led to a housing estate, and it was sort of, a big housing estate, and it had got lots of little sort of like alleyways cutting through.
Yeah.
And that's where they managed to lose him, didn't they, on the CCTV footage?
Yeah, so obviously we're talking about Hull in the UK. Anyone knows in the UK, you can kind of visualise these big council estate kind of complexes almost.
Yeah.
They are vast. Quite often there's a park in the middle.
Yeah.
There's
Shops.
quite often shops. There might be a corner shop or something else. But it is a rabbit warren of housing, because you might have a block of council flats and then you've got houses back to back on each other. They all run in kind of parallel, and it is easy to get lost because they all look so similar.
I got the feeling as well that there wasn't as much CCTV within the housing estate, so it wasn't easy for them to follow. You just sort of saw him disappear onto the housing estate, go around a corner, and then that is it. He's gone. And there was like 4 or 5 different ways that he could have gone.
But if you imagine walking 5 miles and not one person getting your face on CCTV.
How do you know where all the cameras are?
Yeah.
Or I mean,
being really
he did
cautious.
just have his head down, but he didn't have a cap on or anything. He just literally had a hood on, didn't he?
Yeah.
His head down.
Yeah.
So maybe he was just very lucky to not get caught on anything at all.
So obviously the CCTVs helped them track the person, but they now still don't have an identity of this suspect. They know that they may or may not live on this housing estate, or just know someone else that lives on the housing estate.
Yeah.
They've not really got as much information as obviously they would like at this stage. So they go back to the scene, and as Annie already mentioned, they took different kind of pieces of potential forensic evidence.
I think they thought, what could we find someone else's DNA on other than the victim?
Yeah.
So they actually took a wallet, because I think they probably thought that if they were in there arguing, if anything had been about money, the person could have touched or picked up the wallet to take that or take money out of it.
It's also difficult because if you've listened to our episode on cross-contamination, you will know that that there's an order in which you have to process things. And when CSIs go into a scene, they're looking for DNA evidence first, and then they're going to look for other types of evidence, and then they're going to start using the fingerprint powders, etc., because they are destructive techniques. If you've already got a scene filled with smoke, that's already affected the kind of, the level of quality of the DNA samples that you're potentially going to get. So they have to then think that whatever they swab, it's already more difficult to get a good sample from. So things like the wallet that might have been in a pocket or something would potentially be less affected by that smoke damage than other things.
They still had to take a sample, obviously, of the blood that was on the wall as well.
Yes.
That we said earlier, but that didn't come back as anyone other than our victim in this case.
Yeah, so it was confirmed to be the blood of Anthony's, but they thought that they might get a mixed match.
Yeah.
Where it's then obviously with the offenders, but that wasn't the case. As we mentioned, they looked at the phone box, but they didn't get any DNA from the handset. And then the other thing that they took at least 3 swabs from was a picture frame. It was about broken. I can't speak today. I really apologise. It was a broken picture frame that was found. And again, they didn't know whether if it was someone that maybe knew Anthony, they might have picked the photo up, they might have thrown it on the floor, anything like that. But again, no DNA match for that.
I think they were quite disappointed at this point, because you are just trying every possible thing that you can, and you're just not getting that breakthrough.
Yeah.
So I think they decided to focus mainly on the housing estate where they last saw our maybe suspect, witness, whatever they are at this point. But because the estate is like a maze, while officers are focusing on there, it's taken them quite some time to obviously maybe hang around on the estate, work their way through the estate.
There's a few things that they can do, isn't there? Obviously, there's like surveillance of the area. You can look for someone wearing that coat. So you're basically kind of on a bit of a stakeout, aren't you? And you're just surveilling the whole estate. You can also obviously speak to people. You can try and speak to people, but quite often
they might not want to speak to you.
With estates that are so big, with certain council estates, you're not going to get answers from the police.
And people don't want to be seen talking to the police
so
as well.
So you'd definitely be playing the long game by going down that route. Like, it's a good route to go down, but it's definitely not going to get you any quick answers.
But what I did actually find quite interesting, when the media team made a breakthrough and a camera near the flat had actually picked up some audio. And in the audio, I've wrote down a few quotes here of what we could hear the suspect saying. So we've got, "Where are your drugs?" and "Give me all your drugs." Mm-hmm. In this audio, you can hear that the suspect has an accent which isn't local.
Yeah.
So that is already picked up. There is nothing to suggest at this point that Anthony has ever taken drugs or ever had a drugs problem.
Yeah.
So now we're looking more at a mistaken identity, because Anthony's not being crossed, like not being messed up in that.
It's so interesting, isn't it, that you've gone from like a case where you've got so much potential evidence that's not come to fruition.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they're like, ding, 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 we've got this huge potential breakthrough.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was maybe from, now, unless they want to sponsor us, there are other options available. But it sounds like something like a Ring doorbell.
Yeah.
Where it picks up visuals, but then it does capture audio as well.
Yeah.
But again, that's still not from within the flat. So unfortunately, although it backs up your witness testimony, that there was two people that were heard arguing, it doesn't actually confirm that those are the same two people.
Yeah.
If you're in a block of flats, it could be two people walking up to a flat further up.
It doesn't.
Arguing on the way.
But then there was also violent threats.
Yes.
So we got "I kill you, motherfucker."
Yeah.
It was horrible to listen to, because it was like you could just hear everything that's going on. And then there was sort of like a bit of a pause. And then the suspect said, "You enjoy your fucking fire."
Yeah.
So now we know that the suspect was aware of the fire.
Yeah.
And didn't call it in to the police, and had made threats at this time.
Yeah.
Like, it's so, I found that horrible to listen to.
I did.
Audio.
It was just the fact that it was so incessant. So it literally goes from shouting insults with no response, like they give me all your drugs.
You couldn't hear the other
Where
person,
are your
you?
drugs?
You couldn't hear Anthony,
and you
all
can't
of this.
hear anyone defending themselves. And then, unfortunately, as the audio goes on, then when they're shouting, "I'll kill you," and you can hear almost like a gargle, can't you? And there's one part where it said, "Look," he shouts, "Look, listen to me." And you think, like, it sounds like they've clearly been assaulted to such an extent that they can't physically look
and listen
because of how badly they've been beaten. And
just that line, "Enjoy your fire."
Yeah, but you can hear that there is someone there.
Yeah.
But that there's just nothing that they can do.
Yeah.
And it's it's good for the police in one sense, because, like you've just said, it then means that there's proof that they knew that there was a fire, and that they've not then had someone with a distinct accent ring up and call it in.
Yeah.
And that there's been threats of violence, and you can hear someone else in the background. But it's just horrific to listen to, especially because Anthony didn't have any convictions. He wasn't a known drug user like you. So there's no real reason that he should be targeted in this way.
And
for
it's
not
this
right
to be that horrific when it's mistaken identity.
Yeah. Obviously, even if he was a drug user, it's still completely unacceptable. But it would almost be like, it'd make a bit more sense, wouldn't it? But it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah. So there was an appeal to the public, because the police thought, we've now got this audio, we've got CCTV of the man we want to speak to, but if anyone's driven past at the time, maybe they've got some dash cam footage.
Yeah.
So they did actually start looking into that side of it as well, and they released part of the CCTV. So not the full thing and not the audio, but they released part of it with this sort of distinctive walk to see if any members of the public would come forward to see if anyone recognised him.
Because it does seem quite a kind of small in terms of radius investigation.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They don't think that the person's
Gone to a different city
elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like, it is likely that they're living literally within 5 miles of where the offence has taken place. So it would make sense for potentially a public appeal in this case to work.
Yeah. So there was another breakthrough when the police, who we've said were sort of staking out the housing estate, they came across a man matching the description with the distinctive walk. So the officers went and approached him, and he actually gave the officers his ID, and I think it was his work permit.
It was a residency permit, actually. So it was a...
Yeah, it was a card, wasn't it, with his photograph on it. And obviously this had got his name on it as well. And the name on the card was Mark Wasowski.
Yeah.
So officers don't have grounds for anything at the moment. They don't have grounds to go straight in and arrest him. But now they've got a name to the sort of face, haven't they?
Yeah. Officers obviously said that the reason that they'd stopped this person in the first place was because they looked similar to the CCTV footage. But one of them did actually say that it caught them off guard, really, because as soon as they started talking to Wasowski, he sounded very much like that audio that they'd heard. And obviously when you've heard such, vile and aggressive things come out of someone's mouth, that sticks in your mind.
Must be unnerving.
Yeah. And so to then hear the person in front of you who sounds very close to that, it must be really difficult to then have to just say, okay, you can go. And they took a photo of the permit so that they'd got a picture of the person's face. But again, Wasowski didn't seem to be bothered by having been stopped. He wasn't kind of, like some are defensive and they say, you've got no right to stop me.
No, he was calm, wasn't he?
Yeah, just didn't seem fazed by it at all. But yeah, they then did have to let him go because they'd not get any evidence. So it's now all about proving that the suspect is who they suspect him to be, and also placing them at the scene and placing evidence
to link him
to the scene.
But then it all just comes down to CCTV, doesn't it? I feel like the whole of this case did come down to CCTV. So where he walked across like a car park, the shop car park or the supermarket car park, is where they got like the sort of some good footage from him in the direction he was walking.
Yeah.
But they actually went back to that shopping centre and they had a look at the cameras from there as well, didn't they?
Yeah, they'd not initially decided to do it because it wasn't within the search parameter that they were looking at.
And the time scale as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't within the time.
Within that.
They actually went back, didn't they, to look at the day of.
Yes.
So now they're not just looking at that section from 8:30 p.m. onwards.
Yeah.
They're looking at what happened before that day, before that time, because the suspect is very good at keeping the face covered after they've committed a crime.
Yes.
But why would you keep your face covered before you've committed a crime?
Yeah.
So they sort of worked it backwards, didn't they?
Which was very clever, I thought. Like, it just makes sense, but it's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
And what they found was that, again, someone with a very similar walk, they believed to be Wasowski, entering the shopping centre, quite a good level of CCTV.
Yeah.
And their face at that point is very clear.
It's the first one with a face on it, isn't it?
Hold that up against the residency permit and they think, right, yes, this is the person. But they've now obviously got to prove that that's the same person. And how do you do that? They actually worked out that if he made any potential transactions in any of these shops, they could maybe track that back to a specific bank account that'd obviously have a name linked to it or whatever. So they see him going into a jewellery store and it looks like he's holding a receipt, so potentially to return something.
Yeah.
So they obviously go and speak to the jewellery store, and they've now got that on CCTV. And they notice that he did in fact make a return. They also note that he's wearing a kind of over-the-shoulder, like, crossbody bag, which was the brand Champion. So they've now got quite a lot of potential different, like, elements that can match your suspect to the name that
It looks
they've got.
like he's wearing quite similar stuff as well, doesn't it? The
Yes.
coat looks the same. The distinctive walk looks the same.
So at that point, they then have enough to be able to go and arrest Wasowski at his address. So it's a specialist team that are dispatched to go and arrest him. And again, you can watch the footage of him being arrested.
He barely says a word.
He doesn't really say anything, but I did know it was as if he was either asleep at the time, but it looked like it was like mid-afternoon maybe that they'd gone round to arrest him.
Yeah.
But he looked like either like he was half asleep or just really confused. But then at the same time, he was quite calm and collected.
Because I think if someone arrested me on suspicion of murder, I'm going to be panicking.
Yeah. But then also I didn't know whether he could have potentially been high, maybe. Like, he was he just seemed a little bit...
And he was saying
blasé,
as well...
but also a bit out of it.
I think he could have been a bit blasé because he also said that he didn't speak English.
Yes, so that was the next thing I was going to say.
If he wasn't going to respond to them, if he did respond to them and react to them, they'd be like, well, you do talk English.
Well, exactly, because what I did notice is they're talking to him. They've obviously said why they're arresting him. He then says he doesn't understand what's happening. But then one of the officers is talking to him and then says... do you speak English? To which he says, no, not really. But you've obviously understood what the officers have said to
all
that
the way
point.
up to now, yeah.
So is that the case? Also, obviously, given the fact that they think it's the same suspect that's been heard on the audio, we know that he can speak a lot of English quite well because you heard the audio so clearly.
Making threats. Yeah. So his mobile phone was actually seized as well, and he was obviously going to be taken to the police station.
Yeah, so...
But his mobile phone, like we've done in a lot of cases before, haven't we? We can get a lot of information from that based on the location, which would be a help in this case.
Yeah. So he's taken to the police station on Clough Road and is arrested on suspicion of murder. It's made very clear to him while he's still in custody with the custody sergeants that it was due to significant CCTV evidence.
Yeah.
So even before you've sat down and been interviewed, you know that they've got enough to go on and that they've got quite a lot of CCTV. You also wouldn't potentially know which camera or what's got you. Do you know what I mean? If you've walked for 5 miles, you wouldn't
He's probably
know where
thinking,
you've
I
been
tried
caught.
to do like a good job on that. I wonder which one it was that I actually got caught on.
So in interview, initially they ask where he was between 7:30 and about 9:30 at night.
At this point, he's got a translator, by the way, as well.
He's got a translator in, but again, is answering the questions. He states that he was at home on his PlayStation and he'd been at home all day. They then show him some of the CCTV from the shopping centre, which was the clear footage, and say, this looks remarkably like you. Are you sure that that isn't you? Like, you say you were at home all day playing games, but are you trying to tell us that this isn't you? And he says, no, that's not me. I don't have a North Face jacket.
It point blank, like, denies it, doesn't he?
Yeah. They then interview him a second time and again is still denying that it's him in the footage. He's very calm. He isn't agitated. He's being accused of murder. There's a translator there, but there aren't any signs of him being rattled at that stage.
Do you think
I don't think
he had any idea of like the level of technology that is available? Because do you think they took his
Probably
phone
not, yeah.
and it didn't really faze him, but then do you think he just didn't know that they'd be able to track its places?
Or do you think he was going the opposite way where, you know, the more you defend, it's like when people, they ask if they can take a DNA swab and people say no, and that makes them look suspicious.
Yeah.
Do you think he was just doing it the other way where he thought, like, if I'm just so cool, then it...
So just not even analyse my phone.
Yeah, I won't be caught. I don't know. Because
maybe.
some people do think that they're that kind of above the
Yeah,
law,
they do, don't
they?
they?
while this is going on and while he's being interviewed, obviously, because he's been arrested, they then have a warrant to search his home address. So he's also got a flat, and they are searching the flat for any evidence and then also searching CCTV around his flat. And lo and behold, further footage comes to light, but this time it's out the back of his own flat. And there was like quite a small area out the back of the flats, which is where all the bins were kept. They notice that there's a CCTV camera on that area where the bins are, and they see that later on, after the offence has taken place, someone goes up to that particular camera and tries to destroy it. You can see them like jump up and try and either kind of break the glass,
whack it off or something,
or they're trying to like move the camera so it's obviously not facing on the bins. They then wonder whether that is because their suspect was trying to destroy evidence.
Yeah, or if he was trying to dump something in the bin outside of the back, like maybe his clothes that he worn.
Yeah.
And he then thought, right, I'll destroy the evidence afterwards.
Unfortunately, they didn't find the North Face coat or the clothing that was believed to have been obviously what he was wearing at the time of the attack in the flat. So then they're obviously going to be... Then you've got to think about the faff of going through bins or speaking to the disposal units.
Yeah.
And at one point they've been taken to the landfill and things like that. You've then got to go down that route. So
Yeah,
like
there's a lot
it's
to
just
go
one thing
through.
leads to another.
But during the house search, they did actually find the Champion bag, didn't they?
Yes.
That they saw him wearing previously on the CCTV.
Earlier in the day.
It was the little black sort of man bag that they'd seen
so
him wearing.
this crossbody bag that they'd got him on CCTV wearing was a direct match to the one that he was seen in the mall. Wait, I'm saying mall now.
Yeah, no,
in the shopping
we've done an
centre.
American case,
in the shopping centre, and it then had the receipt that they'd seen from earlier on in the day. So that then categorically
proves that it's him.
Proves that Wysowski is the same person as in the CCTV footage. So then they go back to him, and during interview he says, no, I was at home all day. They say, okay, but what about the CCTV? And they then managed to get information from the phone that was pinging from a tower very close to the shopping centre that he's caught on CCTV in, and he says he wasn't there, but his phone was in the area at the
Everything's
time.
placing him at that shopping centre.
It also then pinged at a tower very close to Anthony Ibbitson's, our victim's flat. Based on that information that comes through, they're then able to extend custody for another 12 hours, which again is crucial because you've only got that 24-hour period. He's clearly still denying it, not giving anything away in interview.
And you've got to have enough evidence for it to get extended as well. You can't just go and say, I want it
extended. We haven't finished yet.
Yeah, we need more time.
Yeah.
So, and then you have to go to the CPS, don't you? So you have to go to the Crown Prosecution Service and say, here's the evidence that I've got. Is this enough evidence to charge this person at this time?
Yeah. At that point, they again go back to Wysowski and basically say, look, if you give us an account of what happened, you tell us what happened, we'll go with that information. Like, that will be better for you. And at that point, I think it starts to dawn on him that they've got an awful lot of evidence.
Yeah.
So he starts to then give a no comment interview, which is usually the point in which we're like, you've got him.
I'm surprised that he didn't give a no comment interview from the start.
Earlier on,
I was expecting no comment from sort of the
but that's
first
what
interview.
makes me think that he did just think that if he was blasé and chill about it, he thought he could get away with it.
Yeah.
Because at that point, his body language does become more defensive.
Yeah.
They then play him the audio, and they're basically like, "This sounds an awful lot like you." Is this
He
you?
don't really know what to say, does he?
No. And at that point, again, just no comment. So we've now got the receipt in the bag that proves it was him. That's a match to the CCTV footage. They then decide to do more forensic testing back on Anthony Ibbitson's flat, and in fact Wysowski's flat as well. Finally, they get a kind of forensic breakthrough in terms of DNA, because they do then find a matching DNA or a mixed DNA profile on an item of clothing at Wysowski's flat. I believe it was on like the cuff of a piece of clothing, and that was a mixed profile that did in fact belong to both Wysowski and Anthony, which then proves that they've both been in the same place at the same time, because how else would both people's blood be on one piece of clothing?
Yeah, there was also a black hoodie that was in Wysowski's flat that had Anthony's blood on it.
Yes.
So it's like, how would the victim's blood have got onto your clothing in your flat?
In your own flat, if you've never met this person. If you've never been there,
yeah.
The one thing that we haven't mentioned was then the pathologist report, and that was obviously crucial. That was quite significant in terms of, I think, showing intent of the offender.
Yeah.
So the pathologist report stated that there were numerous head and neck injuries to Anthony, which would have been enough to render him unconscious. That makes sense given the audio that we heard.
With no response.
No response. You can barely hear them struggling, but there's no actual verbal response from Anthony, and then it goes quiet. And they then state that would have rendered him unconscious, therefore unable to leave his own home when the fire began.
So without the attack, he may have been able to survive this.
Yeah. And he then died due to smoke-related injuries, which was just purely down to the fact that he couldn't escape because of the assault.
Yeah.
So it's just horrific. I mean, one of those things alone would have likely killed him. I mean, if he had severe head injuries from the assault and no one would have found him, that alone may have killed him. And then the fire on top of it is just... it's horrific and so unnecessary, because what we still don't know at this stage, that we've usually mentioned by now, is what the motive was.
Yeah.
Obviously, drugs have been spoken about, but again, the police have got no reason to believe that Anthony had any, involvement in drugs, or would have had drugs in his flat. So,
I think it must have been a mistaken identity.
Yeah.
It must have been in this case. So it did actually go to trial, and the trial lasted for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And he was found guilty of murder.
Yeah. I think the fact that he didn't then plead guilty when they'd given him all this evidence up against him, he didn't plead guilty.
I don't know if there was like a lot of Anthony's family there, but I always think when the offender doesn't plead guilty, it puts the family through a whole lot of distress having to go through the trial.
Yeah, yeah. And 4 weeks is a very long time to be sat in a courtroom day in, day out.
Yeah.
He was sentenced to a minimum of 20 years. But it's just horrendous. And like we said right at the beginning, the fact that, he was willing to set a house, a flat alight that could have then set the whole block alight is ridiculous.
It's obviously also a very dangerous individual.
Yeah. We also don't know exactly how the fire was set. And again, there's not an awful lot of information out there about that. But they've obviously got the intent from the fact that he knew that there was a fire and then and left. So just a really tragic case. And it just seems, I mean, I know they're all unnecessary, but like literally over what? Over the fact that you think someone's got drugs even though they've told you they haven't, and you'd not then
And with the disturbance, like he's probably searched the house as well and still not found anything.
Yeah.
And I just think how much Anthony would have had to go through in those moments.
So scared.
Leading up to his death, yeah.
So that is today's case. Again, just remembering the life of Anthony Ibbitson. we would, on a lighter note, like to thank everyone that's been listening. We've noticed a real rise recently in downloads. We've had lots of new subscribers on YouTube. So if you do watch us, then thank you and hello.
If you want to put a face to the name and you do listen to us on the podcast, you can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok.
Yeah.
And we do have the full episodes obviously out on our YouTube channel, but it's the short clips that are on TikTok and Insta. So if you're listening to us and you don't actually know what we look like.
Yeah. Oh God.
I'm not sure if you want to.
No.
Does the face match the names?
Yeah. Work out which one's which.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you for that, because we have noticed there's been quite a few new subscribers sneaking in there. And again, if you've got any feedback for us, anything you want more of, anything you want less of, please do let us know, because we are constantly trying to just be better.
We put so much pressure on ourselves.
Yeah.
So if you do like the episodes that we're doing,
please tell us.
We really would appreciate you leaving us a review as well.
That'd be fab.
Yeah.
But apart from that, thanks ever so much again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, whatever it may be. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Take care.